At the beginning, a school blackboard was shown with the words written on it asking what one thing someone would take to a desert island. Sosuke was shown thinking in confusion, wondering why he was in a classroom when he was supposed to be sleeping at home, and questioning whether this meant he was dreaming. From behind, a boy reacted in surprise and questioned whether this was a classroom, while another girl looked outside the window and remarked that everything outside was completely white, concluding that it had to be a dream. Other students were shown talking, after which Sosuke recognized the faces around him and realized that they were the members of Class A. He reflected that the realism was extremely convincing and that it did not feel like a dream at all. Chiyu then spoke about the desert island question and asked Sosuke what he was going to take. Sosuke thought to himself that even his childhood friend from kindergarten had been recreated with incredible realism, and despite the situation, he made an inappropriate observation about her appearance. Chiyu reacted by calling him perverted, and Sosuke immediately apologized. Sosuke then reflected that even the reactions felt realistic. While blushing, Sosuke recalled that the topic was about what to take to a desert island. Students around them began giving answers, mentioning smartphones, insect repellent, sunscreen, Coca-Cola, and crisps so they could share. As each answer was given, the number on the blackboard continued to increase. Sosuke noticed this and pointed it out to Chiyu, who agreed that the number had definitely gone up. More students gave answers such as a lighter, a gun, and a knife, with comments about survival, classics, and each answer caused the number to rise further. Chiyu reacted in disbelief and questioned how many people had already answered. Sosuke then announced that he had decided what he would take and declared that he would choose the ability to craft. Chiyu questioned whether that even counted. Sosuke admitted that he knew he was not reading the room and that he would not normally say something like that if this were not a dream. However, Sosuke reasoned that since there were no restrictions stating that the item had to exist in reality, it should still count. Chiyu accepted this logic and decided that she would choose healing magic. Sosuke reacted with excitement, calling it a brilliant choice. Chiyu gave him a proud look and stated that she would save Sosuke's life. Sosuke responded that while he was happy about that, it seemed that he was in mortal danger in Chiyu's imagination. At that moment, Shoko spoke up and said that if such things counted, she also had something she wanted. Sosuke noticed Shoko's chest and instinctively looked away, thinking that he could not help staring despite trying to steal his spirit. Shoko laughed and pointed out that Sosuke had seen it again. Sosuke reacted awkwardly and thought that it was obvious to the other person. Shoko then mentioned that she had read the manga Sosuke had recommended the other day and said that she wanted to take the fluffy white being that appeared in it. Sosuke wondered if Shoko had read the manga he usually read during lunch. He questioned whether living things counted as a single item. Shoko considered this and instead chose the skill to summon fluffy things. Sosuke accepted that explanation and concluded that it was acceptable. Chiyu reacted by calling Sosuke unfaithful. Sosuke questioned who she meant and internally reflected that, to begin with, his relationship with Chiyu was not that kind of relationship. Other girls then became excited and started suggesting abilities such as preventing hair from becoming coarse from seawater, not gaining weight no matter how much they ate, and creating barriers to keep bugs, beasts, or strangers away. Sosuke realized that everyone had begun playing a game of making up abilities. Sosuke then asked Chiyu to look at the blackboard again. The text on it changed, stating that everyone's answers had been confirmed and that transfer would commence. Sosuke wondered how many people had noticed the letters on the blackboard in time. He shouted Chiyu's name and tried to grab her. The students began floating, and screams of confusion and fear filled the room. Sosuke reached for Chiyu with a tense expression, and Chiyu called out to him. They managed to grab each other's hands as a bright light engulfed them. The scene then shifted to the sky, and both Sosuke and Chiyu were shown lying on the ground. Sosuke woke up and asked if Chiyu was all right. Chiyu responded weakly, and Sosuke, shocked, questioned whether this was still a dream. With tension on his face, Sosuke observed the sun, the sea breeze, and the waves, noting how incredibly real everything felt. He also noticed that Chiyu's hand felt soft and warm. Sosuke then realized with certainty that this was not a dream and that they had truly been transported to some island. Chiyu expressed her worry, and Sosuke reassured her that no matter what happened, he would be there. While holding her hand, Chiyu asked whether this was a class transfer. Sosuke nearly lost his balance and confirmed that it was. Chiyu stumbled, and Sosuke supported her as she shook and admitted that she was scared too. Sosuke called her name, and Chiyu told him that it was a good thing he was there. Sosuke nodded, and together they agreed to overcome the situation and decided to explore their surroundings first. Sosuke noted that he only had his uniform and indoor shoes and that his pockets were empty, with no bag or smartphone. Chiyu observed that there was only a beach and forest around them and that no other islands were visible. Sosuke wondered whether everyone else had been sent to the same island and recalled that it had been called a desert island in the dream. While saying the words desert island, Chiyu tripped over a stone and almost fell. Sosuke grabbed her and warned her to be careful, but his own leg slipped, causing him pain. Chiyu noticed that Sosuke's leg was swollen and said it needed treatment. Sosuke brushed it off and smiled, saying that he was just glad Chiyu was safe and that was what mattered. Chiyu then felt something and leaned closer with a tense expression, causing Sosuke to blush and react in surprise. Sosuke asked what was wrong as Chiyu moved closer. Chiyu said that she might be able to manage it and then activated healing magic with basic healing. Her hand glowed, and Sosuke's leg was healed. Sosuke reacted in shock and excitement as Chiyu explained that it seemed the mysterious blackboard really had given her skills. Sosuke called it incredible, while Chiyu blushed and said she was embarrassed. Sosuke reflected that he had gotten flustered because Chiyu had come so close so suddenly. Chiyu then asked about Sosuke's ability. Sosuke realized that he might also have crafting skills but wondered how to use them. Sosuke suddenly felt something and began glowing. Chiyu called his name in concern as Sosuke realized that he had figured out the crafting skill. Sosuke extended his hand, which glowed, and a window appeared. Sosuke observed that a screen had appeared and identified it as the crafting skill interface. The screen explained that objects separated from the ground could be itemized. Sosuke tested this by picking up a nearby stone and itemizing it, causing it to disappear. Chiyu reacted in surprise as Sosuke confirmed that the item had been stored in an inventory. Sosuke explained that the inventory functioned as an item box visible only to him. Chiyu wondered whether a large rock would fit, but Sosuke discovered that it could not be itemized because it was still buried in the ground. Sosuke then tested seawater and realized that it also could not be itemized unless it was fully separated. Using a shell as a container, Sosuke successfully itemized the water and stored it in the inventory. Sosuke celebrated the success as the item appeared in the inventory list. Chiyu observed that items stored in the inventory could be used for crafting. Sosuke checked the recipes and found many available options. He reasoned that discovering and itemizing new materials might increase the number of available recipes, though other conditions might exist. Sosuke then noticed salt listed and realized that it might be possible to craft it. Sosuke concluded that if salt could be crafted, life on the desert island would become much easier. Sosuke then activated crafting, causing the window to glow. Sosuke reacted in amazement as Chiyu asked whether it had worked. Sosuke confirmed that it had and revealed the most important item to have when stranded, which was water, and then also showed that salt had been obtained. Chiyu reacted in surprise. Sosuke commented that compared to Chiyu's healing skill, his own ability did not seem very impressive. Chiyu immediately denied that and stated that Sosuke's ability was extremely useful for surviving in that place. Chiyu made a puffed-up expression, which Sosuke noticed, causing Sosuke to laugh and agree that Chiyu was right. Chiyu then asked whether the water was safe to drink. Sosuke confirmed that the description stated it was safe. Chiyu questioned whether the salt and water had been separated from seawater and whether impurities had also been removed. Chiyu further mentioned sodium chloride and recalled that they had studied it in chemistry class. Sosuke realized that Chiyu was right but noted that such elements were not present. Chiyu wondered whether the result depended on how the user perceived it or whether there was some rejection factor involved. Sosuke admitted honestly that he did not know. After thinking about it, Sosuke suggested that the system might be simplified like a video game. Chiyu questioned the comparison, and Sosuke explained that in video games, weapons usually retain their original performance forever, and that concepts such as wear and deterioration often do not exist. Sosuke reasoned that this was done to avoid breaking immersion and suggested that this might be the same reason why Nagari was omitted. Sosuke further explained that even the crafting skill likely worked under the same principle, because if items were displayed using chemical formulas, Sosuke would not be able to use the skill at all. Chiyu agreed with this explanation. Sosuke then internally wondered whether Chiyu was trying to look like a crab. Sosuke concluded that what had been given to him must be a creation skill designed specifically under the assumption that Kuno Sosuke would be the one using it, though Sosuke admitted this was only a guess. Sosuke then wondered whether Chiyu's healing magic might also work in the same way. Chiyu suddenly recalled something, and explained that when she had chosen healing magic with the image of a white mage, It had come with an extra spell. Sosuke reacted with interest as Chiyu asked Sosuke to show his hand. Chiyu closed her eyes and activated purification, causing her hand to glow and the dirt on Sosuke's hand to be completely cleaned. Chiyu explained that the magic sterilized and cleaned wounds or designated areas. Sosuke reacted by praising how useful it was. Sosuke then reflected that purification and healing normally did not seem related but concluded that it must have been the result of imagining a white mage. Chiyu nodded in agreement. However, Sosuke began to question the true purpose of the mysterious blackboard, which had transported them to an unknown island and forced them to survive with only a single item. Sosuke expressed his desire to return to Japan but acknowledged that they would need to survive first. Chiyu then stated that what they needed right now were water, food, and a place to sleep. Sosuke agreed and confirmed that this was the correct order of priority. Sosuke explained that in order to secure those three things, they would gather materials and begin crafting. Chiyu stated that she wanted a basket that she could carry on her back. Sosuke acknowledged the request and said that once they had made the bare minimum tools, they would split up the tasks. After gathering materials, Sosuke stated that the materials should be enough for the tools, and then used crafting to create a stone axe and a wooden basket. Chiyu reacted with amazement and praised Sosuke with a happy expression, stating that it was just as expected of Sosuke. Sosa questioned whether this was the typical praise a protagonist received in isekai stories and told Chiyu to stop. Chiyu pointed out that Sosuke looked a little happy. Sosuke hesitated, then agreed to get back to work. Sosuke was then shown cutting trees with the axe while Chiyu collected materials. When a tree fell, Sosuke caught his breath and noted that the object had to be detached from the ground, calling it an annoying restriction. Sosuke then itemized the tree and successfully stored it, celebrating the success. Chiyu thanked Sosuke for his hard work and praised him sincerely. Sosuke reacted in surprise and asked whether she was serious. Chiyu explained that although Sosuke had not tried very hard at first, he had gradually gotten the hang of it. Sosuke acknowledged this and internally noted that Chiyu had been watching closely. Sosuke then thanked Chiyu for gathering so much material as well. Chiyu responded affirmatively. Sosuke suggested using healing magic on Chiyu, and Chiyu eagerly agreed. Sosuke reflected that there had been moments where he had overdone things by relying on Chiyu's magic. Chiyu laughed and said that she hoped Sosuke would reach the point where he could not live without her. Sosuke questioned whether that was the right moment to say something like that. Chiyu asked Soso to show his hand again and moved too close. Chiyu then used basic healing, and Soso felt the pain and full body fatigue fading away. Chiyu declared that the treatment was complete. Sosuke praised Chiyu respectfully, calling her Chiyu-sama. Chiyu laughed and said that since it was Sosuke, the treatment fee was free. Sosuke expressed deep gratitude. The scene then showed the beach and Sosuke's inventory, which contained a wooden barrel. Sosuke decided to create a large number of wooden barrels from the wood and place them into the sea. The barrels filled with water, and Sosuke then stored them back into the inventory. Sosuke concluded that by doing this, they had obtained large quantities of drinking water and salt. Sosuke then crafted a wooden canteen. Sosuke drank the water and felt deeply rehydrated after all the effort. Chiyu was shown drinking as well and reacted with delight, saying that it was delicious with a happy expression. Sosuke smiled at her. Chiyu then expressed concern that the other students might be having a hard time. Sosuke agreed and internally wondered how those who had chosen items like smartphones or potato chips were doing. Sosuke recalled that after discussing abilities with Shoko, many students had chosen some kind of ability, which might be what was keeping some of them alive. Sosuke also considered that this could lead to conflicts among students, but decided that there was no point in worrying about it for now. Sosuke then stated that the next priorities were food and a place to sleep. Chiyu reacted quietly. Sosuke reflected that they did not know how long the survival situation would last. Sosuke then looked at Chiyu and realized that from now on, with it being just the two of them, they would be sleeping and eating together. Sosuke's gaze drifted, and inappropriate thoughts crossed his mind, causing Sosuke to turn his face away and mentally scold himself. Chiyu noticed Sosuke blushing and sighed while blushing herself. The scene then shifted to trees and the running legs of a wolf. A voice stated that Kuno was around the area, addressing Mashiro. A shout followed as the wolf ran at full speed. Shoko was shown riding the wolf together with another girl and urged it forward, stating that they were heading straight to Kuno. Chiyu was then shown drinking water, wiping her mouth afterward, and stating that the next step was establishing a base. Sosuke agreed but noted that there was no need to look for a cave or anything like that. Chiyu then came up with an idea and asked whether Sosuke could also build a house using his skill. Sosuke responded confidently that with all the wood they had, it should be possible to build a base, and Sosuke confirmed that new recipes had already been unlocked. Chiyu reacted with excitement and asked what the new recipes were. Sosuke checked and reported that the recipe was for a cabin. Sosuke internally reflected that he had been hoping for something better, such as a log house, but acknowledged that for now, the conditions for unlocking recipes seemed to involve discovering materials to a certain extent and imagining something that could be crafted. Sosuke wondered whether anything else might be missing. Chiyu called out to Sosuke and gave a thumbs up, stating that on the very first day after being shipwrecked on a deserted island, already having a base was simply incredible. Sosuke, blushing, agreed and said that they had to take things one step at a time. Sosuke thanked Chiyu, and Chiyu suggested that if they chopped down dozens of trees, they might be able to build a real house. Chiyu calculated that if they cut down one tree per day, they could manage it in about a month. Sosuke reacted in shock at the idea of it taking a month. Chiyu then lightly pressed against Sosuke while saying that until then, they would live squeezed together in the small cabin. Chiyu was blushing, and Sosuke wore a tense, blushing expression. Sosuke hesitantly asked whether it really did not bother Chiyu to share the same cabin with him, and offered to chop down another tree if she wanted. Chiyu stated that it was not a problem. Sosuke asked if that was really true. Chiyu, blushing, called Sosuke a dummy. Sosuke apologized and internally wondered whether his childhood friend's feelings were stronger than he had thought. Sosuke reflected that if that were the case, it would make him very happy. Chiyu then commented that across all eras and worlds, heroines who were childhood friends always had it rough. Sosuke questioned Chiyu, calling herself a heroine. Chiyu asked whether she was not allowed to do so. Sosuke, blushing, replied that it was not that she could not, but hesitated. Chiyu then made a cheeky, blushing expression and stated that it seemed Sosuke had finally noticed her charm. Sosuke brushed it off dismissively. Sosuke then changed the subject and stated that it was time to look for food. Chiyu noticed Sosuke blushing and sighed. The scene then showed them walking together. Chiyu suggested that they explore the forest for now. Sosuke agreed and said that Sosuke would go ahead, instructing Chiyu not to touch anything she found and to tell Sosuke first instead. Sosuke reasoned that even if something dangerous injured Sosuke, Chiyu could heal him. Sosuke internally added that he did not want to put Chiyu in danger. Chiyu praised Sosuke as reliable, just as she expected. Chiyu then grabbed Sosuke's hand and stated that it was impossible for Chiyu to walk behind Sosuke. Sosuke reacted nervously while blushing. Sosuke explained that they would walk holding hands so they would not get separated. Chiyu accepted this explanation, saying that it was important not to get separated. Sosuke acknowledged it. Sosuke then explained that in order to make it back to the beach, Sosuke would leave marks on the tree trunks with the stone knife as they went. Chiyu commented that it was a classic method but pointed out that others might see the marks as well. Chiyu then asked whether Sosuke preferred being alone with her. Sosuke explained that someone who had been a good person back at school could turn into someone bad in a situation like this, and that it would be dangerous to run into someone like that. Chiyu repeated the question while blushing. Sosuke, with a tense expression, admitted that he was lucky to be with Chiyu. Chiyu agreed and tightened her grip on Sosuke's hand, causing Sosuke to react. Sosuke internally remarked on how serious Chiyu was. The scene showed them continuing to walk among the trees. Sosuke then asked whether Chiyu felt something strange. Chiyu reacted in confusion. Sosuke observed that even though they had entered the forest, Sosuke was not playing holy sword with a random stick. Sosuke asked Chiyu not to bring up his embarrassing past. Chiyu then pointed out that something else was strange, noting that there were no insects. Sosuke agreed, pointing out that there was not a single mosquito, that the forest felt cool, and that it was extremely easy to walk through. Sosuke reasoned that in a forest untouched by humans, the ground was usually more uneven and the vegetation much denser. Chiyu began to connect the idea, and Sosuke concluded that it felt like an artificially created environment. The two stopped walking, and Sosuke suggested that they stop overthinking it for now, since they would not reach any conclusions. Chiyu agreed. Chiyu then pointed something out and called Sosuke's attention to mushrooms. Sosuke reacted enthusiastically and praised Chiyu, saying Sosuke would handle collecting them. Sosuke placed one into the inventory and confirmed that the mushrooms were edible. Sosuke decided that they should leave half of them and continue looking for other edible items. Chiyu agreed. They continued walking and picked up some fruits. Chiyu pointed something out, and they approached it together. Sosuke remarked that the inventory was extremely useful, because it allowed them to tell at a glance which items were edible and suggested trying to eat one. Chiyu purified Sosuke's hands using purification. Sosuke thanked Chiyu and took a bite, reacting with surprise. Sosuke confirmed that there was no problem and that it tasted incredibly good. Chiyu also took a bite, made a happy expression, and commented that everything tasted better when hungry. Sosuke agreed and suggested gathering a few more edible items before heading back. As they walked, Sosuke noticed Chiyu's chest moving with each step and internally remarked on it. Sosuke then noticed something ahead. They arrived near a cliff, and Chiyu observed that it was tall and did not look climbable. Sosuke proposed making the area a base candidate, explaining that it would be a perfect spot for placing the cabin and making a campfire. Chiyu agreed and noted that it would be difficult for others to find the place. Chiyu concluded that this place would be their base. Sosuke agreed. Chiyu, wearing a happy expression, referred to it as a candidate for a love nest. Sosuke reacted nervously and asked what Chiyu meant by love nest. Chiyu imagined Sosuke transforming into a beast while she was unable to stop it. Sosuke responded that Sosuke would never attack Chiyu unless Chiyu wanted him to. Chiyu praised Sosuke as a true gentleman. Sosuke thanked Chiyu. Chiyu then posed a question about what would happen if she did not object. They made eye contact. Sosuke called Chiyu's name internally and reflected that Chiyu was a very important childhood friend, Sosuke's best friend, and also a very attractive girl. Sosuke thought that he would be really happy if they could become even closer than they already were. However, while blushing, Sosuke wondered what Chiyu was thinking.
By the way, if you enjoyed the video, maybe consider liking and subscribing, pretty please?